Hello everyone, this is Void Spirit. I'm here to bring you guys amazing fanfiction that you will surely enjoy. But before we start, please subscribe and like the video for more amazing content.
CH-42. Dialogues and the Other Fainted Man. Seal had finished the ritual and the angels were returning. Rimuru was talking to Chloe. The two of them were sitting at a plaza table. Rimuru was holding Chloe's hand. Chloe, are you all right? Chloe had a somewhat despondent look on her face. This was because she had seen Seal with Shizu's body and it brought back many memories. Quote. Chloe didn't answer and just stared at the ground dejectedly. Rimuru stood up and walked over to Chloe. He held both her hands and she stood up with a confused look on her face. Rimuru-san. Rimuru hugged her tightly and she widened her eyes in surprise. Rimuru continued hugging her and said, I don't want to see Chloe sad. That's the worst thing for me. So tell me anything I can do. Anything. If it's about Shizu, I'm sure we will see her again. Chloe always supported him in his difficult moments and Rimuru thought it was his turn. This reminded Chloe that she had several people who cared about her and she didn't need to dwell on the past. She hugged Rimuru tightly. Thank you. I just want to stay like this a little longer. They stayed hugged a little longer and then they sat on a bench in the square with Chloe on Rimuru's lap cuddled around his neck. After a while Raphael came to call them. Rimuru-sama, we have gathered all the inhabitants. We want to know what our next destination is. The destination Raphael was talking about was where to build their new city. They could not stay here, since the gods knew their location and could attack. Rimuru went towards his group asking for some tips on places. He went to the grass field where they were and only Sakura was not there. Guys, do you know any place that the angels can build their new city? Some of them were thoughtful and the one who came up to speak was Tio. I think I know a place. They could go to the place where my clan is hiding. Is it really okay? Rimuru asked and Tio confirmed with her head. She thought it would be a great help if the gods found them. Rimuru called the archangels and Tio pointed out an island in the north for them. The only problem was how they would get there without being noticed by the gods. At that moment one of the angels approached. I could camouflage us. Don't worry Rimuru-sama. A woman with golden hair and wings and white clothes. Can you do that? Abaddon-chan. Abaddon had been revived because of the ritual done by Seal and turned into an angel again. No one held a grudge against her because they knew that Abaddon was being controlled by Metatron. Abaddon nodded in agreement to Rimuru's question. Rimuru then decided that they had better leave as soon as possible and told them to go now. Rimuru was saying goodbye to the archangels when Sariel approached. Rimuru-sama. I want to say something. Her cheeks were red and she was holding her hands to her chest as if hesitating. Yes. Sariel approached and said, I'm going to give you something and I want you to think about it until the next time we see each other, is that okay? Something. Rimuru tilted his head in confusion. Sariel became even more nervous and moved closer. She was already almost glued to Rimuru and quote exclamation mark exclamation mark exclamation mark exclamation mark quote. Sariel kissed Rimuru. Rimuru didn't understand how things got to this point and was both surprised and embarrassed. He could feel Sariel's soft lips pressed against his and Sariel put his hands around his neck. After a while Sariel pulled away in shame and said, until next time. Sariel knew she couldn't go with Rimuru, but she still wanted to stay with him after he finished his adventures. Sariel nodded and flew away. Rimuru stood there watching her go, his face red. Chloe approached Rimuru. Chloe, it wasn't my fault. I didn't mean to. It was her who. Rimuru thought she was angry and tried to explain herself, but Chloe just hugged her arm and said, it's okay, I don't mind. She spoke with a smile as she saw that Rimuru felt guilty about kissing someone in front of her. Rimuru was so charmed by Chloe's quiet manner that he stroked her head and said, I don't know how many times I have fallen in love with you. She turned red and at this moment the two heard footsteps. It was the other members of the group approaching. So, shall we go? Hajime asked. It was about time they left. Rimuru agreed and so did the others. Only Seal seemed a bit reluctant as Rimuru was going to ask why, but before he could, he heard the sound of things falling from behind. He heard a female voice that spoke in a frightened tone. Rimuru looked toward the voice and saw Sakura who had gone to get the luggage from the inn. Sakura had dropped the bags on the floor and was looking at Seal wide-eyed as tears streamed down her face. Sakura. Rimuru didn't understand what happened and approached Sakura worried. Sakura didn't understand him and was only staring at Seal while she was crying. Rimuru held her by the shoulders and called her back. Sakura. What happened? You're okay. Rimuru-san. Sakura regained her senses and let out a confused groan. Rimuru realized that Sakura was looking at Seal and explained who it was. Sakura looked confused. Rimuru and Chloe were worried and others were not understanding. Sakura. Why are you crying? Please talk so I can help you. Sakura was crying on Rimuru's chest and he didn't know how to help. Sakura stopped crying after a while and said, I don't know why. I only know that I felt very emotional seeing her. It's strange. Sakura wiped her tears away. And it came out of Rimuru's chest. Sakura said she didn't know how to explain it and that it was like a deja vu. Rimuru thought it was strange, but didn't want to pressure her and knew Sakura wouldn't lie. The others were also worried, but decided to leave it to Rimuru. Hajime took the six-wheeled vehicle out of the treasure chest and everyone got in. Sakura got in and just as Rimuru was about to get in. Master. Seal called out to him in a low tone. Rimuru didn't understand what was happening and asked. Seal-san, are you okay? If you want you can go back to my mind now. Rimuru thought that Seal had not enjoyed being out in the world and asked. Seal looked even sadder at her words. She then approached Rimuru. Master. Before I go. I wonder if you could give me a hug. Rimuru didn't understand, but he saw that Seal wanted that very much. So he nodded and approached Seal. Seal hugged him tightly and said, Thank you. She spoke in a weak voice and Rimuru noticed something in her voice. Seal-san. Are you crying? Rimuru asked and looked at Ciel's face. He saw that there were many tears streaming from his eyes. It's just that. Hugging Master like this has always been my greatest wish. Seal-san. Rimuru finally realized why Seal was sad. It is not because he wanted to get rid of his body, but rather because he wanted to keep his body. He also realized something else. Rimuru wanted to ask Seal why they hadn't stopped time to solve the crisis in the city, but now he understood that it was because Seal wanted to get out. Rimuru hugged Seal tightly and said, Seal-san, you know. If you want to stay with your body for a while I don't mind. Actually I'd like that very much. Seal seemed surprised by this. She looked at Rimuru in surprise and said, Can I? Really? Yes. You always do everything for me and if you want something just let me know. Seal hugged Rimuru happily and tears of joy flowed from his eyes. Rimuru was feeling like an idiot for not noticing sooner. Finally someone inside the car realized that they were taking too long and called out to them. Rimuru-san, Seal-san, shall we go? Chloe called out to them, but Seal didn't even listen and continued hugging Rimuru. Rimuru looked gently away from Seal and answered Chloe. Yes. They got into the car and drove off. Dot 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 dot. Dot 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 dot. Dot 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 dot. Dot dot dot. No one noticed the black-haired girl following them through the shadows. Filled circle filled circle filled circle. In the capital of the Haihiri Kingdom. A few days after Kaori left the capital with Hajime and the others Aiko and the students returned. Shizuku was heading towards Aiko's room to talk to her about Hajime and Rimuru, as she learned that they met in Lake Ur City. The other reason Shizuku wanted to talk to Aiko was because of the letter that Rimuru left. With some mysterious hints and she thought Aiko would be the best one to talk to about it. Not least because the letter said to do so. Shizuku was walking down the corridor and greeting several people. She was carrying her new black sword that she had won from Rimuru. Shizuku had trained with this sword and found it absurdly strong, but she didn't know about some of the uses because Rimuru didn't have time to explain everything. So she took it to the greatest blacksmiths in the kingdom and the sword made them go crazy. They questioned Shizuku about the sword as if she was a criminal and only understood when Shizuku said that the sword was made by someone from the same world as her. The blacksmiths explained to Shizuku that this sword was more powerful than Kuki's sword and had an unknown method of connecting with Shizuku. This was because only she could activate the sword's abilities. Rimuru did this because he thought the kingdom might try to give the sword to someone else. They also analyzed several of the sword's abilities. Besides the healing and lightning that Shizuku already knew, they had floating. Shizuku could control the sword from a really high distance. The smiths were not sure, but they said the limit was around kilometers. Plus, it didn't use magic to control it. Protection greatly increased Shizuku's defense levels. Divine cut. Shizuku could give a straight cut at high speed. It was so fast that it was hard to control. Limit break. It was equal to Kuki's ability that temporarily triples Shizuku's status. Mutation. The sword can split in two and can also change size within a limit. Evolution. Shizuku's sword would get stronger along with it. Honestly, this scared Shizuku. That was too much strength for a sword. Moreover, the sword could get even stronger if Shizuku trained, and that was scary. This sword was different from normal swords because it was made using magisteel, a metal from Rimuru's world that was strengthened by magicals. The swords from Rimuru's world were also different. Many of them chose their owners and evolved as they pleased. After analyzing the sword, the smiths became even more obsessed. Shizuku asked them to keep the skills a secret, and in return she would bring the sword back for analysis again. Obviously they accepted. OCD OCD. Shizuku knocked on Aiko's door, but she was not there. Shizuku waited a while and saw Aiko coming from another hallway. She approached and called out to her. Sensei. Sensei. Ho. Aiko looked very thoughtful about something and Shizuku had to shout to call her. When she noticed Shizuku, Aiko took a fright. Yagashi-san, it's good to see that you're okay. You didn't get hurt. Aiko asked about Shizuku's estate since she heard about the demon's attack. Shizuku denied it and the two went into the room to talk. After they exchanged information, Shizuku was disheartened to hear about Shimizu's death as she saw how bad Aiko was, but was happy that she was okay. Shizuku then asked. Sensei doesn't hold a grudge against Nagumo-kun, right? Hajime killed one of her students, so Shizuku thought that might be the case. Aiko denied it with her head and said. He only shot, so I wouldn't blame myself. Shizuku was confused, so Aiko explained to her that Hajime was trying to protect Aiko from the guilt of having a student killed because of herself. Aiko realized this after a while thinking about the city of I see. Sensei, you said that Nagumo-kun used a medicine to save you from the brink of death, right? Can you tell more about that? Huh. Shizuku asked that because she thought that such a medicine might be useful. She knew it wasn't the same one Rimuru used on her and Meld because Rimuru told her it didn't cure poisons. However, Aiko's reaction was extremely startled at the question. This was because she remembered how Hajime had saved her. Her cheeks turned red on the spot and she began to look around, avoiding Shizuku's gaze. Sensei, did something happen between you and Nagumo-kun? Shizuku was suspicious because of the way Aiko was talking about Hajime and increased her suspicions with Aiko's reaction to her question. There's no way that could have happened. What are you trying to imply? I am a teacher and he is a student. That's all. Sensei, calm down. You are making a strange expression. Quote exclamation mark exclamation mark exclamation mark quote. Aiko muttered several times, I am a teacher, and then regained her composure. Shizuku was already totally convinced. Shizuku thought it best to change the subject and asked. Sensei, you were talking to the king. What did he say? About that. First he told me that everything is in chaos because of the appearance of angels all over the world, and also Nagumo-kun and Rimuru-kun have been declared as heretics. What? Well, I kind of understand, but I didn't think it would be so soon. Hajime and Rimuru didn't cooperate with the church, so it was normal for this to happen, but Shizuku didn't think it would be so soon. Aiko said. Yes, me too. I asked the king to reconcile, but he wouldn't listen. The two stood thoughtfully and then Shizuku seemed to have remembered something and spoke. Sensei, Rimuru-kun said that you would have something to tell us. May I know what it is? Aiko figured this was about the liberators and said. Yes, I have something to tell. It is about the travel purpose of Nagumo-kun and others. I want to tell it to everyone at the same time. Tomorrow after lunch I will tell them, okay. Shizuku agreed and went back to training. However, something strange happened the next day. Aiko disappeared. Filled circle, filled circle, filled circle. The six-wheeled vehicle arrived in the desert. A gigantic desert without a drop of water and with several dangerous magical beasts. Rimuru was driving and Seal was hugging him since they had left the Reaper's town. Her expression was one of pure happiness to be hugging him. Rimuru thought it was very cute too, not least because Shizu's face was very pretty and he even stroked her head once in a while. Rimuru made a clone to stay with Chloe that was sleeping in Sakura, because he was worried about both of them. Especially Sakura. The group's reaction to seeing Rimuru clone himself was funny. In the middle seat Hajime was sleeping on a lap pillow made by Yu. Beside him was Kaori with a disgruntled expression. In the back seat were Tio and Shia who was with Mayu sleeping on his lap. Moo. Yu-san monopolizes Hajime-kun a lot. I think so too, but it's a normal thing. I don't mind. I'm satisfied if Gushin-sama abuses me once in a while. Kaori, Shia and Tio spoke in this sequence. Yu said nothing and stared at Hajime sleeping. Rimuru continued driving and stroked Sakura's hair gently. Are you really okay? Sakura covered his hand with her own and said. Yes. I'm fine now. She seemed happy with Rimuru caring about her. Rimuru then asked Seal. Seal-san, do you know why Sakura started crying when she saw you? Seal denied with her head. She then said. I don't know much. The only thing I got was an analysis of her brain at the moment. The most active part was the left prefrontal cortex. That means that she cried from happiness. They were thoughtful at Ciel's words. At this point, Rimuru-kun, isn't there someone there? Rimuru looked in the direction Kaori pointed and there was a person lying in the sand with a cart beside him. Why didn't the monsters eat him? Sakura asked confused. They had been attacked several times by giant monsters, so it was strange that a fainted man was still alive. Hajime woke up with the commotion of the car and listened to the conversation. He then said. Another guy passed out on the road. Yes. Maybe we'll find another secret city. Shia agreed with Hajime, thinking that this was the second young man they found lost on the road. Kaori then asked. Are we going to help? Papa. You will help, right? Maybe just a little help. Hajime agreed and shrugged his shoulders. He had no way to refuse with Kaori and Mayu's sad faces. Rimuru then drove toward the man lying on the ground. They got out of the car and Kaori healed him. One of the Rimurus and Seal were still in the car. Rimuru could keep the clones going for a long time if he didn't get too far away from them. As Kaori healed him, she explained the young man's condition. He seems to have some disease would be. The pressure of that disease on his body would have killed him if we had arrived later. Do you guys know anything about it? No one knew, so Rimuru decided to ask the smartest person in the group. Does Seal-san know anything? Yes. This disease was caused by ingesting a highly harmful fluid for humans of which I don't know the origin. So you don't need to worry, it's not infectious. The group was impressed with how much Seal knew just by looking, and Rimuru was with a proud expression as if to say, that's Seal-san. At this moment Kaori said. He's waking up. The young man slowly opened his eyes. He looked at Kaori and then looked at the group confused. Goddesses. I see. That's the afterlife. The young man must have assumed this because of the beauties standing in front of him. Because he assumed this, the young man tried to touch Kaori, who was closer, only to be trampled by Hajime. Hajime didn't want random people touching Kaori without permission. Blah. Ha. Hajime-kun. No, I needed that. I think it's natural not to let strange guys touch you without permission. The young man let out a groan of pain. Kaori said that Hajime didn't need to do that, but she stuttered and turned red that Hajime wouldn't let other men touch her. She was even more embarrassed after Hajime's words. The young man stopped being stepped on by Hajime and heard about the circumstances. He then thanked the group for saving him and explained why he was here and about his illness. As they listened to his story, the group could only think what trouble followed them wherever they went. Filled circle, filled circle, filled circle. In another world. Ice continent. That was the description of this place. A palace of ice on a floor of ice. The cold in this place was totally abnormal and few could survive here. If you entered this palace, the first thing you would see was a throne room. At the moment there was a relaxed-looking red-haired man sitting on this throne. He was tinkering with a small black rectangle with glass screen that he received from an acquaintance. He said it was a prototype, but I thought it was pretty fun. The man babbled as he tinkered with the device. At this moment a young woman with white hair and clothes approached. What is it, Velzard? He asked without taking his eyes off the device. Guy, it looks like you like the Demon Lord Rimuru's gift. What's it really like? Smartphone. Yes, yes. It's quite fun. By the way, why are you here? Guy didn't even pay attention to Velzard's ironic comment and asked her again. Velzard showed a serious expression and said, your maids said they have an important notice for you, but they don't want to interrupt your fun. That's why I'm here. Rain and Misery have a warning for me. Guy was confused as they were in a time of peace and didn't have many things that needed his help. Velzard gave a wry smile and said, the warning was, the 6 kings have awakened. Guy was surprised to hear, but he wasn't scared. With his current strength he could easily fight them. In addition, Guy had Velzard by his side, who was one of the true dragons, and in addition was a spirit, which gave him a great advantage over the 6 kings who were demons. Guy gave an excited smile and said, looks like things are going to get hectic. Could you explain to me the meaning of that phrase? Velzard had been born after the kings were sealed and didn't know about it. Guy figured there was no reason to hide it any longer, since the prison had already been opened, and he told Velzard about the sinful kings and the 7 archangels. I see, and to think there were such important things I didn't know about. You're not afraid, are you? PFFT, obviously not. Do Misery and Rain know their whereabouts? As long as Rimuru is not here, it is my duty to protect the humans. I am still the mediator after all. Guy bugged at Velzard's question and answered with another question. Guy didn't want the kings to go around destroying the world, but he wasn't afraid of that because if that happened, Rimuru's subordinates would act. Velzard then said, ask them that. Velzard said and opened a portal for the 2 maids. Misery and Rain greeted Guy and said what they knew about the whereabouts of the kings. We know they are not in hell, but we also know that they have not come out through the gate. That's why we wanted to warn Guy-sama. Misery said. Guy also found these facts curious and stood up from his throne. Haha. They must have been helped by someone. This is getting fun. I think I'll help you guys look for them this time. That will cheer me up a bit. You seem really excited. Maybe I'll help too. So they began to investigate the escape of the sinful kings. Filled circle, filled circle, filled circle. Kufufufu. Diablo gave an excited laugh. In Tempest, a meeting was taking place among the chief executives. This was a routine meeting that was held to discuss the state of the city. In addition, they wanted to discuss the disappearance of Rimuru, Chloe and Hinata. Here were Benimaru, Shion, Shuna, Soe, Diablo, Testarossa, Ultima, Carrera, Ranga, Geld, Adalman, Zejin and Kumara. Besides the executives, they had other important people like Ramirez, Veldora, Mayormals, Gobta and a few others. Only Testarossa, Ultima and Carrera understood the reason for Diablo's laughter. The others were confused and Benimaru asked, hey, Diablo, what happened? Kufufu, Sir Benimaru, I just got news that old enemies are back. I think that's a matter for all of us to discuss. Saying this, Diablo told about the war against the sinful kings. Testarossa, Ultima and Carrera helped to tell the story by adding details from time to time. After they finished telling, quote. Everyone was silent with the various prehistoric information they discovered. Only one person could be heard. Kuahaha, I would like to fight with them. Wow, Shisho would definitely kick their ass. The excited voice of Veldora and Ramirez was heard. The others said nothing about these comments as they were already used to this behavior. Shuna then said, Testarossa-san, you said that these kings were released. Shuna decided to ask Testarossa as she was the one who would give the most direct answer. Testarossa then spoke. Yes, Lady Shuna, we were told by Misery and Rain. They said that they do not know the current whereabouts of the kings. However, you do not need to worry about them. Why don't we need to worry? Geld did not understand Testarossa's words as the kings seemed quite strong. It was Carrera who answered in his place. Ha, you don't need to worry as any of the 12 patrons can beat the kings. Those guys are too weak. Everyone was calmer as they heard Carrera's words. At this moment Shion stood up. Very well, if any of those kings try to cause trouble we will take them on. I know Rimuru-sama would want that. Yes. Everyone agreed at the same time. CH-43. The Duchy of Ankady. After the young man regained consciousness, the group took him into the car and gave him water to drink. Then the young man explained his story. His name was Viz Fuad Zengan and he was the son of the ruler of the Duchy of Ankadi, which was the only country that existed in the desert. This country used a lot of seafood and was the main supplier of food to mankind. After Viz introduced himself, the members of the group introduced themselves and Viz was amazed to learn that they were apostles of God and also golden adventurers. After that Viz told about his illness and why he was here. 4 days ago a crisis came to the Duchy of Ankadi. Several people were infected by a disease that made them unconscious and lose control of their magic power. Before long there were 3,000 infected, the total population is 270,000, and the disease continued to spread and many died. The doctors didn't know what caused it, but one day, by accident, one of them used analytical magic on the city water, and to his surprise, he realized that it was contaminated. All the water in Ankadi came from a large oasis and after further analysis it was discovered that the oasis water was contaminated with an unknown substance. After that it was chaos because there was very little uncontaminated water and the disease was spreading fast. However, there was a way to suppress the disease. The Serene Stone. This disease damaged people out of control of their magical power, but this stone could calm it down. If ground into a powder, this stone could even cure the disease. The Serene Stone could be found inside the Guryan volcano, which is also a dungeon that lies north of Ankadi. So Viz, at the behest of his father went towards the Haihiri kingdom to get help from the adventurers and the church to enter the Guryan dungeon. He also went for food aid as the crop had been infected by the water, but he fainted on the way because he was infected with the disease. In fact, the reason the magical beasts didn't attack him when he was passed out was because of fear of the disease. My symptoms hadn't appeared at the beginning of the trip, but they came on hard after a day's travel and made me faint. Viz looked guilty for not making it to the kingdom. He seemed to have a great sense of responsibility to his people and couldn't stand to see them suffer. Viz was thinking that he was very lucky to be found by Hajime and Rimuru's group. I want you. No, I ask you, as a representative of the Duchy of Ankadi. Please lend me your strength. He spoke and bowed deeply. The group had varied reactions. Chloe, Sakura, Kaori and Shia were totally on the let's help team, but Hajime, Rimuru, Yu, Tio and Seal were wondering what to do. The reason they were hesitant to help was because they didn't want to get too involved in the war in this world. If they helped humanity too much, it could totally influence the war. In fact, Yu would accept any decision Hajime made, just as Seal would accept any decision Rimuru made. Rimuru didn't want to see innocent people die, so he decided to help, but he wanted to know Hajime's thoughts first, but before he could ask. Papa, we're going to help, right? Yu tugged on Hajime's sleeve and asked with a hopeful face. Hajime couldn't say no to that question and agreed. He also thought it might be helpful to have the Ankadi Duchy owe them a favor. Fufu, Shia and Tio laughed at Hajime who couldn't say no to Yu. So they headed towards the Duchy of Ankadi. Halfway there Viz spoke. Look, leaving aside this strange means of transportation. Since you guys are going to lend me your strength, I'd like you to collect serene stones at the volcano, is that okay? Yes, don't worry about it. Since we've decided to help, we'll see if we can do something about the water as well. Could you guys do something about the oasis? Hajime looked at Rimuru thinking that he was the one most likely to be able to do something about it. Even if Rimuru couldn't, you could use water magic as a temporary solution. Rimuru raised his thumb up and said. Of course we can. Don't worry Viz-san, Ankadi will be saved. He said confidently and that relieved Viz a little. He could finally see hope before his eyes. Filled circle filled circle filled circle. The group arrived in Ankadi. It was a large city with a barrier around it to protect from sandstorms and in addition it relieved the heat a little. Next to the city, still inside the barrier was a large and beautiful oasis. When you were in the city you could see how crowded the city was with patients. In addition many thirsty people could be seen who could not drink the water from the oasis. The group first spoke with Ranzi, Viz's father who was the ruler of these lands. After hearing that the group could save the city, Ranzi was amazed. Especially after learning that 3 of them were apostles of God. Kaori went to help stabilize the people and took several mana crystals with her, Viz also went with her to explain to the people who Kaori was. The others went to assess the oasis with Ranzi. Master. No need to warn Seal-san. I figured it out too. Hajime, Seal and Rimuru seemed to have noticed something. Ranzi and the group did not understand his words and made confused expressions. Ranzi then asked, "Is there a problem?" "It's just that. How well did your team assess the oasis?" Well, we assessed the water of both the oasis and the underground river that fills it. The water in the river was not contaminated. The only part we didn't analyze well was the bottom of the oasis. Ranzi was confused by Rimuru's question. Hajime then asked, "Did something sink into the oasis?" "No, certainly not." Ranzi explained that they had guards around the oasis and on top of that a barrier that made anyone who had bad intentions against the oasis faint. So he said there was no chance that anyone could have poisoned the oasis. Rimuru approached the edge of the oasis and raised his hand toward the water. "Then what is that?" Rimuru said this and used a wind magic to attack the water. Ranzi was confused by Rimuru using a magic without a corner, but he completely forgot about it 2 seconds later. "That's because. Urua. What's that?" With a roar, a 4-meter tall creature came out of the water. It looked like a giant green-colored slime and was floating in the air. Ranzi took a few steps backwards in fright. The others finally understood what Hajime, Rimuru and Seal had detected. Rawr. The creature gave another disgusting roar and took off on Rimuru, who was closest. Ranzi thought Rimuru was gone, but the rest of the group was taking pity on the creature. Rimuru stretched out his hand toward the creature and said, "Well, I think I'd better kill it at once." Purple flames. Rimuru threw a small purple flame at the creature. The creature was burned and died. Simple as that. Rimuru didn't even use any stronger attacks as there was no need. He even thought about using some of his new abilities that he analyzed from the archangels, but saw that there was no need. Ranzi couldn't understand what his eyes were seeing and asked in a trembling voice, "That magical beast, did it die?" Yes, that's right. Rimuru agreed with Ranzi's question. "Hajime, you, Shia and Kaori, were looking like, we understand how you feel. But what was that? A Vracham. How did it end up in the oasis?" Vracham were magical beasts similar to slimes, but they were much smaller than this creature. No one seemed to know what the creature was, but Seal, who had just analyzed the water, said that magical beast was the source of the water contamination. The most likely way it got there was at the demon's command. I thought it must be something like that. Hajime seemed to have thought it would be something like that, and Ranzi did not understand his words. The demons. What do you guys mean? Before that, if that creature was the source of contamination, then is the water clean now? One of Ranzi's subordinates examined the water and said that it was still contaminated. The one who answered Ranzi's question about the demons was Tio. What Seal and Gushin-sama mean is that the ones who would gain the most from this are the demons, right? Plus they have the ability to control magical beasts now. So it would be possible for them to do that. Killing so many innocents just to win the war. That's really. The demons would have a lot to gain if humanity's main food supplier went into crisis. Rimuru didn't seem to like the demons' strategy one bit. He had participated in several wars before, but never thought of doing such a thing. It seems I was very naive. I never thought that the demons would do something like this. Well, I guess I should thank them. Now that this magical beast has been eliminated. In time the water of the oasis will be clean on its own. Ranzi thanked them deeply. Rimuru was talking to Seal about something, and seeing that they thanked him, he said, "Don't worry. You won't have to wait." "What do you?" Rimuru didn't even let Ranzi finish speaking and pulled his hoverboard out of infinite space. He got on his skateboard and went to the middle of the oasis. "What is he doing?" Ranzi asked the group, but they didn't seem to know either. Only Seal said, "Don't worry about it. Just watch." Everyone looked at Rimuru. Rimuru raised his hand slightly and a black flame appeared in his hand. The flame was really small and went towards the water of the oasis. Then, tshhhhhhhhhhhh. The water in the oasis began to evaporate. Even though the black flame was small, its temperature was not even a little. A few seconds passed and the flame caused all the water to evaporate. What? Ranzi's mouth was almost reaching the ground, so open was it. The others were also a little surprised. This was because Rimuru had just wiped out the water source of the country they were helping, but they thought Rimuru must have a plan. My turn. Seal said and disappeared. Actually, she didn't disappear, she had just temporarily gone back inside Rimuru. Yash, come on. Let the water be done. Rimuru climbed high with his skateboard and lowered his hand. As he spoke, water came out of his hand. Yet it was not little water. Bam! Everyone's eyes widened. That's because a waterfall was coming out of Rimuru's hand. No, it wasn't just a waterfall, it was much more water. The force of this water when it fell was so great that it caused the oasis to grow in size. However, even though the oasis doubled in size, water kept coming out of Rimuru's hand, and all the while the oasis was filled. Quote exclamation mark exclamation mark exclamation mark exclamation mark exclamation mark exclamation mark quote. Everyone was dumbfounded. The only ones who weren't that surprised were Chloe and Sakura. This was the water creation technique that Seal had created. A few years ago, Rimuru was thinking about the future. This was something he did a lot since he didn't age and was in the future. He was thinking about some problems that might arise, and he thought of one: the lack of water. Unlike food, water could not be created, and water was necessary for many life forms. So Rimuru wanted to think of a solution for the future lack of water. Water magic did not create water, it only invoked and controlled it. The only ones that could really create water were the spirits, but relying on them too much could cause various conflicts. So Rimuru asked Seal what could be done if he ran out of water in the future. Seal first developed a technique to turn large amounts of salt water into fresh water. This would make it take much longer to run out of water, since they could drink seawater. After a while, Seal created the Definitva solution. A magic formula that created water. Seal said that this formula was too advanced and that the current alchemists did not understand. So Rimuru decided not to introduce this formula until far in the future, but he could create water as much as he wanted. So Rimuru decided to replace the water in the oasis. Not only that, but since he turned the other water into steam, it would rain a lot in the city, and this would help the new crops, since the old ones spoiled due to the contaminated water. He also confirmed with Seal that the poison would not evaporate along with the water. Rimuru returned to the group and Seal returned to his body. I think that's good. Sakura, could you do me a favor? Obviously. Rimuru ignored the surprised faces of his companions and spoke to Sakura. Sakura would not deny a request from Rimuru and agreed before she listened. Rimuru whispered something in her ear and she nodded. Sakura stepped back a little and raised her hand high. A pink light began to come out of her hand and she said, "Nature's blessing." The light shone brightly for a while and then went out. If anyone in the city looked around, they could see several new plants or plants that had grown too fast. This was a magic of Sakura's that turned a soul into a fertile one. She applied it in and around the area of the city. This magic was similar to Veldora's fertile paradox, but its effect was much smaller. This was good as it would not start growing trees inside the houses. Rimuru explained to Ranzi that this magic would help with future crops. It would make sure that the people of the town would not go hungry since the harvest was discarded. What in the world? Yo, Rimuru, don't you think that's an exaggeration? Ranzi was amazed at the events and Hajime thought that Rimuru may have gone a bit overboard, but Rimuru didn't care. I think that will be enough. Now we just need to get the stones from the volcano, right, Ranzi-san? Ranzi-san. Ranzi was looking at Rimuru and Sakura with an amazed expression. He regained his senses at Rimuru's call and said, "Rimuru Dono and all of you. The Duchy of Ankadi owes you an eternal debt. Thank you," he said and bowed his head. His subordinates did the same. Normally it would be frowned upon for a ruler to do this, but none of his subordinates stopped him because they knew that this group had actually saved their country. Rimuru was a bit ungracious at being thanked so sincerely, and Hajime was happy to hear the word debt, as he wouldn't have to remind them that they would be owed one. Well, we have no time to waste. Let's go back and talk to Kaori, we still have to master the dungeon. Hajime said, and they all headed to the medical center where Kaori was. Halfway there they asked Seal and Rimuru about how he made that huge amount of water. They thought it might be helpful if everyone knew this magic, but Rimuru told them that only Seal and he could do it. They arrived at the place where the patients were being treated. Kaori was taking care of several people at the same time, and meanwhile the other doctors were doing secondary work. The doctors respected Kaori very much after seeing how strong she was, and the patients too. In fact, she was already idolized by much of the town, for in their eyes she was a beautiful and powerful apostle of God. Ranzi called everyone in a loud voice and told the audience that the oasis had been purified. This caused cries of joy to resound and hopeful looks to return to the people. The group spotted Kaori healing some patients, and Hajime called out to her. "Hey, Kaori, we are heading to the dungeon. So how long will it take?" "Hajime-kun." Kaori made a happy expression upon seeing Hajime, but upon hearing his words she became thoughtful. 2 days, she replied. That was the time until she did as much as she could for her patients. "Hajime-kun, I will stay here. In the meantime, get the stones from the volcano. I'm sorry for not accompanying you. I really want to save these people, even though Hajime-kun doesn't care about this world. No need to apologize. I've already said I'm going to help this town, so it's no problem." On the way here, Kaori heard about the mad gods and Hajime's goal. Still, she didn't care and wanted to continue with him. So she was kind of guilty for not helping her companions in the dungeon and staying helping people that Hajime didn't even care about. However, Hajime reassured her. "Okay, we'll get the stones then. Take care." Kaori was happy to see Hajime caring about her and moved closer. Her cheeks were red and she said, "You too. Don't hurt yourself, I'll be waiting." She spoke and kissed Hajime goodbye. Hajime felt a great pressure falling in the room when Kaori did this. All the people from Anketi who were nearby looked at him dangerously. That was because this looked like the scene of a worried wife saying goodbye to a husband going off to war, and the people who idolized Kaori did not like this. Kaori turned away from Hajime and smiled goodbye. At that moment Rimuru approached. "Kaori-san, I will leave Seal-san with you. I assure you she will be of great help," Rimuru said, and Seal approached. He thought Seal would help because he had his great analytical skills, and in addition Rimuru had caused a spirit of light to merge with his body. Seal previously had a simple normal body. She didn't want to have a powerful body as she would have to take power from Rimuru, and that is something Seal would never do as she always gives priority to Rimuru. Rimuru tried to convince her to take some of his power, but Seal would not give in. Seal, to reassure Rimuru, said that she could transfer her consciousness back to Rimuru even if something happened to her body. Rimuru was still worried about her, so Seal summoned a spirit of light and merged with it. This gave her some attack powers and some healing powers. "Okay. It'll be great to have more help around here," Kaori said and went to introduce Seal to the other medics. Hajime left Mayu in Ranzi's care and didn't forget to leave the message, "If anything happens to her, I will kill you." Ranzi broke into a cold sweat and called several guards to protect Mayu. Several soldiers came and took Mayu away. "Gushin-sama, don't you want to give me a kiss too?" Tio spoke pervertedly and Hajime gave her a brutal look. "Those eyes. I'm going to have to change my panties," she spoke breathlessly, scaring the people around. Shia also insisted for a kiss, but the most she got was a kiss on the cheek. Obviously Yu was kissed too. After that Hajime, Rimuru, Chloe, Yu, Shia, Sakura and Tio headed towards the dungeon.